There is a dinner table in Richmond, Virginia, where one daughter has spent 30 years being the shield, and the other has spent 30 years being the sword. And 3 weeks before a 40th wedding anniversary party, the mother running that table looked her older daughter in the eye and said one sentence that ended it all. "Your sister gets sick every time she sees your face. Pack your things tonight." No warning, no argument, no chance to explain. Just a decision that had clearly been building for years, finally spoken out loud in a kitchen that still smelled like garlic bread and lemon cleaner. What the mother didn't know is that her older daughter had already done the math. 16 credit card charges, $4,200. Money her retired father couldn't afford to lose, spent by the daughter who was supposedly too fragile to be questioned about anything. What the mother also didn't know is that the daughter she just threw out of the house was 10 weeks pregnant and had decided, sitting at her own kitchen table 2 hours later, that her child would never grow up feeling the way she had felt her entire life. For 7 days, nobody in that family heard a single word from her. Not because she was punishing them, because for the first time in 34 years, she wasn't performing for them either. Then the calls started. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "We were wrong." Just a father asking about a seating chart, a mother leaving a voicemail about how the sister was willing to move forward, and a sister sending a 4-paragraph text that never once mentioned what she'd actually said. They wanted her back for one reason. The anniversary party was in 3 weeks, 60-some guests, a rented dining room, a slideshow, and if the older daughter didn't show up smiling, people would start asking questions the family couldn't control. So she went. She put on a blazer, walked into that restaurant, and sat through a toast where her sister stood in front of everyone and rewrote the entire story, painting herself as the generous one, forgiving a difficult sister for nothing at all. Then she stood up too. What she said next, in front of 63 witnesses who had only ever heard one version of this family, is the part of this story you need to hear from the beginning to understand. Watching from where? Please comment. My name is Vanessa Marsh. I'm 34. Let me take you back to the night this all started. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I picked up one bag, a gray duffel I'd owned since college, and I walked out of my parents' house without saying a single word. My father stood in the hallway the whole time. He watched me carry that bag right past him. He didn't say anything either. For 7 days, there wasn't one call, not one text. Then my father called, then my mother, then my sister. I let every single one of them ring through. But those 7 days of silence didn't wear me down. They gave me something I had never had before in my life: clarity. Let me take you back to a Thursday evening in April, the night my mother chose my sister over me for the very last time. I'm standing at the kitchen sink in my parents' house, rinsing warm water over a casserole dish. Thursday dinner. The same routine I've kept every other week since I moved out 6 years ago. The house smells like garlic bread and lemon cleaner. The television murmurs in the living room. Everything feels ordinary. Everything feels fine. Except my sister Brianna has been in my mother's bedroom with the door shut for over an hour. I can hear her voice through the wall, rising, falling, rising again. My mother's voice stays low and soothing, the tone she uses when she's absorbing someone else's crisis like a sponge. I rinse the last dish, dry my hands on a striped towel, fold it in thirds out of habit, and set it on the counter. That's when the bedroom door opens. My mother walks out first. Her face isn't angry. It's decided, and there's a real difference between the two. Anger leaves room for an argument. A decision doesn't. "Your sister says she gets sick every time she sees your face," she tells me, flat, like she's reading off a prescription label. "I need you to pack your things tonight." I look past her, down the hallway. My father is standing near the coat closet, one hand resting on the frame, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Did you even ask what actually happened between us?" I say. "I don't need to." Her chin lifts. I can see what saying that costs her. I fold the towel one more time, set it down, and walk upstairs. My old bedroom, the one I gave up when I was 12 so Brianna could have her own space, still has a shelf of my college textbooks in it. I pull the gray duffel out of the closet and pack it in under 4 minutes. My father is still standing by the coat closet when I come back down. I walk right past him without stopping. He's had 34 years to say something to me, Tonight wasn't going to be the night he finally did. 3 days before that duffel bag ever came out of the closet, that's really where this story starts. I'm sitting at my parents' dining table with my laptop open, helping my father reconcile a bank statement, something I do once a month because numbers make him anxious. That's when I see it. One charge, then another, then 14 more. $4,200 spread across 3 weeks, all on my parents' joint credit card. The merchant names are a mix of boutique clothing sites, a luxury skincare subscription, and a handbag reseller. Not one of them looks like a business expense. Brianna had told our parents she needed the card for inventory for her online boutique, her third business idea in 2 years. I don't bring it up to start a fight. I bring it up because my father is 64, retired, and living on a fixed income, and $4,200 is not nothing. Brianna, I say at dinner that night, keeping my voice even, these charges don't match any wholesale supplier I can find. She doesn't blink. You went through my purchases? Dad asked me to reconcile the statement. They're right there. Her fork hits the table. Her eyes go wet, not gradually, like flipping a switch. You always do this. You always have to make me look bad. I'm not making you look like anything. The receipts are, I can't do this. She shoves back from the table so hard the chair scrapes the floor. You have no idea how hard I'm trying, and all you do is judge me. She's up, down the hallway, and the bedroom door slams shut behind her. My mother is left standing there, crushing her napkin in her fist, staring at me like I just set the tablecloth on fire. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. Brianna's weapon was never volume. It was tears. I need you to understand something. That night wasn't an earthquake. It was just the newest tremor in a pattern that started when I was 12 years old. That was the year my mother told me to move my things down to the basement. Brianna was 8 and needed her own room to develop her creativity. I didn't argue. I carried my bed sheets down 2 flights of stairs and made a corner of that basement work. My father stood in the doorway that night. He raised his hand like he was about to knock on the wall and say something. Then he turned around and went back upstairs. When I was 22, I graduated summa cum laude from Virginia Tech, a project management major with a double minor in data analytics and organizational communication. My parents came to the ceremony. They sat in the back. They stayed 10 minutes after the processional and then left because Brianna wasn't feeling well. I found out later it was a headache. At 28, I got promoted to senior project manager at Lockwell Infrastructure, the youngest person in the company's history to hold that title. I called my mother from the parking lot, still shaking with excitement. She said, "That's great, honey. Listen, your sister just got yelled at by her boss and she's really upset. Can I call you back?" She never called back. Every milestone I hit shrank the second it walked through that front door. Every achievement got filed behind whatever crisis Brianna happened to be performing that week. I kept pushing forward because I believed that if I achieved enough, they would finally see me. That was the lie I told myself for 22 years. I wasn't angry the night I packed that bag. I was exhausted. There's a difference. Anger still expects things to change. Exhaustion has stopped asking. Let me tell you about my sister, not the version you'd hear at Thanksgiving, but the version it took me 3 decades to see clearly. Brianna is 30 years old. She's genuinely sharp. She reads a room faster than almost anyone I've ever met. She knows exactly when to soften her voice, when to let her eyes well up, when to press her lips together like she's holding back tears she's too brave to release. She doesn't plan it out the way a con artist plans a grift. It's more instinctive than that. It's the only tool she's ever needed, because it's the only tool our family ever rewarded. When her online boutique collapsed last year, $12,000 of our parents' money gone, she didn't say, "I failed." She said, "I'm scared that Vanessa was right about me, and that thought makes me want to disappear." My mother heard the word disappear and stopped hearing anything else. Within 20 minutes, she was on the phone with me. "Do you see what your criticism does to her? She's fragile, Vanessa. She's not like you." That phrase, "she's not like you," was the leash they kept me on for years. It meant, you're strong, so you absorb the damage. She's weak, so she gets the shield. But here's the thing about someone who never faces consequences. They never build the muscle to survive them. Brianna isn't fragile because she was born that way. She's fragile because every time she started to crack, someone rushed in to glue her back together before she ever learned to do it herself. And as long as I stayed inside this family's orbit, she always had someone to perform against. My competence was the backdrop that made her helplessness believable. My mother retired from teaching 3 years ago, 31 years at Maple Ridge Elementary, Employee of the Year twice. She loved that job, not just the children, but the structure. The morning bell, the lesson plans, a hallway full of small faces that needed her. When it ended, she came home to a quiet house and a husband already deep into his own retirement of fishing trips and cable news. She needed someone who needed her. Brianna filled that role without even realizing it. Every crisis Brianna manufactured, the failed business, the boyfriend who left, the apartment she couldn't afford, gave my mother a classroom again. Someone to organize, someone to rescue, someone who proved she was still essential. I was the opposite problem. I paid my own rent at 22. I managed multi-million-dollar infrastructure timelines by 26. I didn't call home crying. I called home to share good news, and good news never gave my mother anything to fix. So she built a system, unspoken rules that kept the household stable and her role secure. Rule 1, never question Brianna's choices. Rule 2, never bring up money. Rule 3, if there's tension, Vanessa adjusts, because Vanessa can handle it, because Vanessa is strong. I used to wear that label like a badge. Strong, reliable, the one who doesn't crack. I didn't understand until much later that strong was just the word my family used for expendable. My mother didn't kick me out that Thursday because she believed Brianna was actually sick. She kicked me out because I was the only threat to an architecture she'd spent 3 decades building. And the anniversary party she'd been planning for 6 months, the one that needed the whole family smiling for 60 guests, was 3 weeks away. My father is a good man. I need to say that up front, because everything else I'm about to tell you will make it sound like he isn't. Frank Marsh spent 40 years fixing other people's pipes. He could diagnose a leaking valve in the dark and have it repaired before breakfast. He sold his plumbing business at 62, paid off the house, and settled into a retirement of bass fishing and Weather Channel reruns. But inside his own home, he never fixed a single thing that mattered. His entire strategy for family conflict was one sentence: don't upset your mother. He said it the year I moved to the basement. He said it the year my graduation got cut short. He said it every time I brought him something that hurt, something that was unfair, something that needed a father's voice behind it. Don't upset your mother. As if her comfort was the load-bearing wall, and everything else, my feelings, my dignity, my place in this family, was furniture you could just rearrange around it. I remember one night when I was 14, Brianna had blamed me for breaking a ceramic bowl she'd knocked off the counter herself. My mother grounded me for a week. That evening, my father came down to the basement. He stood outside my door. I heard him breathing. I watched the shadow of his shoes shift under the gap. He raised his hand, and I could hear his knuckles brush against the wood. Then the shadow moved away, and he walked back upstairs. He loved me, I know that. But love without action is just a feeling you keep to yourself, and my father kept it to himself for 34 years. Still, somewhere deep in the foundation of that quiet man, something was about to shift. I just didn't know it yet. The duffel weighs 11 pounds. I know because the strap dug into my shoulder the same way it did on move-in day at Virginia Tech, the one trip my parents actually showed up for on time. I set my parents' house key on the kitchen counter, right beside the folded towel. I don't slam the door. I close it the way you close a chapter you've reread too many times. My car starts on the first turn. I pull out of the driveway, past the mailbox my father repaints every spring, past the oak tree Brianna and I used to climb before climbing together, stopped being something we did. It's a 40-minute drive home, no radio, no phone calls, just tires humming on the road and my own breathing, steadier than I expected it to be. Daniel is standing in our kitchen when I walk through the door. He sees the duffel before he even sees my face. He doesn't ask what happened. He reads me the way he reads a legal deposition, looking for what's missing, not just what's there. "I'll make coffee," he says. I sit down at our kitchen table. My hands settle on the surface, and for a second, my right hand drifts to my stomach. 10 weeks. A life I hadn't told anyone about yet, except the man pouring decaf at the counter. I was 10 weeks pregnant, and sitting in that kitchen, staring at the duffel bag on the floor, I made a decision that had nothing to do with my parents or my sister. My child would never grow up wondering if they were enough. I reached over and turned my phone off. The screen went black. For 7 days, I disappeared. Here's what I didn't know the night I left. The party was already falling apart without me. 2 weeks before the blow-up, Brianna had volunteered to organize my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. She announced it at Sunday brunch like she was accepting an award. "I want to do this for you guys. Let me handle everything." My mother beamed. My father nodded. Nobody mentioned that every event Brianna had ever organized, a baby shower for our cousin, a neighborhood block party, a 4th of July cookout, had ended with someone else finishing the work. Usually me. But this time, the guest list was 63 people. A rented private room at Belante's, the Italian restaurant on Main Street, printed invitations, a slideshow, a catering deposit. Real logistics. Brianna pitched that party right after her boutique folded. I see that now. It was a performance, proof that she could still deliver something, proof she was still the daughter who showed up. A week before the credit card fight, my Aunt Diane called me out of nowhere. Diane is my mother's younger sister, a community nurse, quiet and observant. We were never especially close, mostly because my mother kept distance between us. "Vanessa," she said, "I want you to know something. Your mother is doing to you exactly what our mother did to me." I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. 3 days later, I was standing at that kitchen sink, and my world tipped sideways. But Diane's words stayed with me. And Daniel said something that same week that I keep circling back to. "You've been keeping a timeline in your head your whole life. Maybe it's time to write it down." I didn't know it then, but that timeline would become the most important project I ever managed. If you've ever sat at a family dinner and felt like you were performing a role nobody wrote for you, I see you. I've been there. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever been the invisible one in your family? I read every single one. And if this story is hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button, because what happened over the next 7 days changed everything for me. Day 1. I wake up at 6 like always. Shower, coffee, drive to the office. I sit through a 90-minute stakeholder meeting about a highway overpass in Henrico County. Nobody at work knows my mother kicked me out of her house 12 hours earlier. Nobody notices anything different. That's the thing about being trained to absorb. You get very good at looking normal while something inside you is rearranging itself completely. Day 2. No call, no text. I check my phone once in the morning, once at lunch, once before bed. Nothing. The silence doesn't surprise me. I know exactly what they're waiting for. They're waiting for the pattern to complete, the part where I call first, apologize for making things worse, and offer to smooth everything over so everyone can pretend it never happened. I don't call. Day 3. Still nothing. Daniel watches me from across the breakfast table. He's not a hovering man. 16 years of litigation taught him when to speak and when to let the record develop on its own. "Do you want me to call them?" he asks. "No. I want to see how long it takes." That night, after Daniel goes to bed, I sit at the kitchen table with my laptop and open a blank spreadsheet, the same template I use for project risk assessments. Columns: date, event, who said what, result. I start typing, not to build a case, not to prepare for a fight, just to see it laid out clean and linear, the way I see everything else in my professional life. 3 days, not a single call, not even from my father. That silence told me more than 34 years of conversation ever had. They weren't worried about me. They were waiting for me to come back and play my part. Day 4. My phone buzzes at 11:47 in the morning. My father. For a moment, I almost let it ring out. But something in me, that 12-year-old girl watching the shadow of her father's shoes shift under a door, still picks up when he calls. "Hey, Vanessa." His voice is careful, the voice he uses when he's measuring twice before cutting. "Hey, Dad?" A pause. I can hear the television in the background, some game show, the dishwasher running. Normal sounds from a house that pushed me out 4 days ago. "So, your mother's been upset. The anniversary party is in 3 weeks and we need to figure out the seating chart." I let 10 seconds pass. I count them. "Is that why you're calling, Dad?" He clears his throat. "I'm calling because we need to talk about this." "You had a chance to talk about it. You watched Mom tell me to pack my bags and you said nothing." That's not fair, Vanessa. Exactly. I hang up. Daniel is standing in the doorway of my office. He heard the whole thing. He doesn't ask what happened, just leans against the frame and waits. He called about the seating chart, I tell him. Daniel exhales through his nose, not a laugh, something closer to confirmation. My mother kicked me out of her house because my sister said my face makes her sick, and my father called 4 days later to talk about where people sit at dinner. I close my laptop and place both hands flat on the desk. The spreadsheet is still open behind the dark screen, 6 entries so far. Dates, names, consequences. I'm not coming back to make their anniversary comfortable. I'm done being the padding between this family's furniture. Daniel nods once. That's all I need. Day 6. 2 missed calls from my mother, 1 voicemail. I don't listen to it right away. I let it sit on my phone like an unopened bill. You know it's there. You know roughly what it's going to say, and you know it won't say what you actually need to hear. Daniel is the one who accidentally plays it. He picks up my phone thinking it's his. Same case, same ringtone, and the voicemail starts before he can stop it. He holds the phone out to me, eyebrows raised. I press play. Vanessa, this has gone on long enough. My mother's voice is clipped, efficient, her classroom voice. Your father and I want you at the anniversary. Brianna is willing to put this behind her. We all need to move forward as a family. That's it. 43 seconds. I listened to it twice, not because I missed something, but because I want to be sure I'm hearing what I think I'm hearing. Notice the framing, I say to Daniel. I'm in project mode now, the same part of my brain that catches scope creep in a contractor's email dissecting every word. Brianna is willing. Not, we're sorry. Not, we were wrong. Brianna is willing to forgive me for something I didn't even do. Daniel tilts his head. That's not an apology. That's a job offer. Show up, perform, keep quiet. And the deadline is the anniversary. I save the voicemail, not as evidence, as a reminder. The next time I start doubting myself, the next time that old habit of absorbing tries to kick back in, I want to remember exactly how my mother sounded when she chose choreography over honesty. She didn't call to check on me, she called to manage me. And for the first time in my life, I could actually hear the difference. Day 7. A text comes in at 9:14 at night. I'm on the couch with a mug of chamomile tea, feet tucked under a blanket, reading a project brief on my tablet. Daniel is in the study reviewing depositions. My phone lights up. Brianna. It's long, 4 paragraphs. I read it once, then again with the part of my brain that reviews stakeholder communications for hidden agendas. Vanessa, I know you're hurting. I'm hurting too. This whole thing has been so hard on all of us. Mom and Dad are devastated. I hate that our family is going through this right now, especially with the party coming up. Can we please just be sisters again? I miss you. I really do. The party won't feel right without you there. Mom put so much work into it and it would mean everything to her. Can we just move past this for them? 4 paragraphs, 3 mentions of the party, 0 mentions of what she actually said about me, 0 acknowledgement that her words got me removed from my parents' home. She doesn't apologize, because in her version of events, she isn't the one who did anything wrong. She reframes the whole conflict as something that happened to both of us equally. This whole thing has been so hard on all of us, as if she hadn't struck the match herself. I screenshot the text and add it to the spreadsheet, row 14. Brianna wasn't reaching out to mend anything. She was casting a role. She needed me back in position so the anniversary could go on as planned, the full family portrait, everyone smiling, no empty chairs to explain. I don't reply. But that night, after Daniel falls asleep, I pick up my phone and call someone I should have called years ago. Aunt Diane. She picks up on the second ring, her voice calm, like she'd been sitting by the phone waiting for this exact call. I was wondering when you'd reach out, she says. Diane is 58, a community nurse in Charlottesville, the kind of woman who takes your blood pressure while telling you a story about her garden. Steady hands, warm tone, nothing wasted. Diane, I need to ask you something. What did you mean when you said Mom is doing to me what your mother did to you? She doesn't hesitate. Your grandmother had 2 daughters, Carol and me. Carol was the one who got the new shoes, the first choice of bedroom, the praise at the dinner table. I was the quiet one. the responsible one, the one who was told to keep the peace. I close my eyes. I know this script. I've been living it. Your mother didn't invent this, Vanessa. She inherited it. She was the favorite, and she learned that families work by picking one child to protect and one to sacrifice. When she had daughters of her own, she did what she knew. Why didn't you say something sooner? I tried. 15 years ago, your mother cut me off for 5 years, called me jealous, told your father I was trying to cause problems. We only reconnected because I stopped pushing. Her voice drops. The difference between me and you is that I waited too long. I let 30 years pass before I stood in front of a mirror and said, "This wasn't my fault." Don't make that mistake, Vanessa. I'm quiet for a long time. Then she says one more thing. If you're going to that party, don't go alone and don't go empty-handed. I didn't understand what she meant. Not yet. The invitation arrives by mail, cream-colored cardstock, gold foil lettering, the kind of stationery that costs more per sheet than some people spend on lunch. You are warmly invited to celebrate 40 years of love, Frank and Carol Marsh. My name and Daniel's are written on the inner envelope in Brianna's handwriting. I recognize the looping capital letters she always uses, the way she dots her I's with little circles instead of points. Tucked inside is a note from my mother, written on her personal stationery, the lavender set she's used since I was in high school. We want the whole family there. This is bigger than any argument. Love, Mom. I read it standing at the kitchen counter. Daniel reads it over my shoulder. They didn't invite you back into the family, he says. They invited you into the photo. He's right. 63 guests, church friends, neighbors, extended family from both sides. If I'm not there, people will ask questions, and questions are the one thing my mother can't control. I turn the invitation over. On the back, in small print, Event Coordinator, Brianna Marsh. Daniel catches it too. She's coordinating a 60-person party? She can't coordinate a grocery list. It's not a joke. It's the truth. Every group project, every family gathering, every shared responsibility, Brianna commits big and delivers small. The follow-through always falls to someone else. I stick the invitation on the fridge with a magnet, not because I've decided to go, but because I want to look at it every morning and ask myself the same question. What am I walking into, and why? 2 weeks until the party. The clock is ticking for everyone, especially Brianna. Diane keeps me updated, not out of gossip. She's been invited too, and she watches the situation the way a nurse watches a patient whose vitals are shifting. Brianna's in over her head, Diane tells me on a Tuesday phone call. She booked a caterer, then found out she went $1,500 over budget. Your mother approved the overage without blinking. Your father asked where the money was coming from. First real argument they've had in months. I can picture it exactly. My father in the kitchen, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead, holding a catering invoice like it's a plumbing estimate gone wrong. She also called your cousin Natalie to help with decorations, Diane continues. Natalie said no. Apparently Brianna promised to help with Natalie's baby shower last spring and backed out the day before. What about the slideshow? She asked your mother to pick the photos. Carol spent 2 days going through albums. I don't say anything for a moment. Diane fills the silence. She's drowning, Vanessa. She's been swimming in the shallow end her whole life, and now she's in the deep water. I think about that image, the shallow end. Every time Brianna struggled, even a little, someone lifted her out before she ever learned to float. Now the water's at her chin, and she's looking for the next hand to grab. For the first time in my life, I don't feel the pull to be that hand. How are you doing, honey? Diane asks, her nurse voice checking vitals. I'm okay. I mean it. Good. That's good. For the first time, the spotlight Brianna always craved was burning her, and nobody was stepping in to adjust the lights. The calls start on a Wednesday, not from my parents, from the outer ring. Aunt Pamela, my mother's older sister, calls first. Pamela lives in Roanoke and visits twice a year, Christmas, and whatever the current crisis is. Vanessa, honey, your mother is heartbroken. Can't you just come to the party and be the bigger person? I've heard that phrase my whole life. Be the bigger person. It's family code for absorb the damage so the rest of us don't have to look at it. Aunt Pamela, Did Mom tell you what she actually said to me? A pause. She said you two had a disagreement. She told me to pack my things and leave her house because Brianna said looking at me makes her sick. A longer pause. Well, I'm sure there's more to the story. Ask Mom what happened that night, then call me back. Pamela doesn't call back. 2 days later, my cousin Kevin texts. Kevin is my father's nephew, an accountant in Richmond, 2 years older than me. We're not close, but we trade Christmas cards. Family is family, Vanessa. Don't let pride ruin this. I type 3 different replies and delete each one. Finally, I send nothing. Kevin doesn't know the real story. He knows my mother's version. Whatever version makes a missing daughter sound like a choice instead of a consequence. By Friday, 2 more relatives have reached out. Same script. Nobody asks what happened. Nobody asks if I'm okay. They all ask one thing. Can you come to the party so everything looks normal? Nobody called to find out the truth. They just wanted the performance to resume, the comfortable, familiar production where everyone plays their role and nobody examines the script. Saturday morning. Daniel takes his coffee to the study. I take mine to the kitchen table and open the spreadsheet. 37 rows now, 12 years of data, dates, events, who said what happened next. I'm not building a legal case. I don't need one. I'm doing something I should have done a long time ago, looking at my family the way I look at a project that's gone off the rails. In project management, when a deliverable keeps failing, you don't just patch the latest failure. You trace the pattern. You find the recurring variable. You map the dependency chain until you see exactly where the system breaks every single time. The system breaks here. Brianna fails. Brianna cries. Mom reassigns the blame to me. I absorb it. Brianna gets shielded. Cycle resets. It's repeated roughly twice a year for over a decade. The data doesn't lie. The data never lies. I scroll through the old family group chat, still on my phone, nothing deleted. The messages look ordinary on the surface, birthday wishes, Thanksgiving logistics, but every few months there's a cluster. Brianna's name in distress, my mother's name in defense, my name in silence. Daniel walks in, refills his mug, and reads over my shoulder for a long minute. This isn't a family, he says. This is a project with a broken scope. I close the laptop, not because I'm finished, but because I know enough. I have the timeline. I have the pattern. I still don't have a plan. Then Diane calls again, and everything shifts. If you're still watching, it means this story is resonating, and I'm grateful for that. Right now, I'm staring at a spreadsheet that maps 12 years of a pattern I couldn't see while I was living inside it. If you've ever had that moment where you finally stepped back and saw the whole picture for the first time, tell me about it in the comments, and hit that like button if you want to see what happens at that anniversary party. Diane skips small talk. I'm coming to the party, and I think you should come too. I set down my pen. Why? Because your mother has been telling people you're having marriage problems. That's why you haven't been around. The kitchen goes quiet. Even the refrigerator seems to hold its breath. She told them I'm having marriage problems? She told Pamela. Pamela told cousin Carla. Carla told me. Your mother would rather 60 people think your marriage is failing than know she told her own daughter to leave. I grip the edge of the counter, not because I'm about to cry, but because something in my chest has shifted from exhaustion into heat, a clean, focused heat, like a welding arc. I've been kicked out. I've been ignored for 7 days. I've been recruited back as a prop for a family portrait. And now, while I'm not there to defend myself, my mother is rewriting the story, turning my absence into my failure instead of hers. She could push me out, I say, and my voice is steady. She could ignore me, but she doesn't get to rewrite my story. Diane is quiet for a moment, then, that's exactly what I needed to hear. We talk for another 20 minutes. Diane tells me she's already spoken to 2 cousins, not to recruit allies, not to stir drama. She asked one simple question. Has Carol ever told you what actually happened between her and Vanessa? Nobody knew. Every single person she asked had only heard my mother's version, the one where I was the difficult one, the one with the temper, the one who couldn't let things go. They deserve the truth, Vanessa. All of them. That night, I sit across from Daniel at the kitchen table. The spreadsheet is closed. My phone is face down. The invitation is still on the fridge, held up by a magnet shaped like the state of Virginia. I'm going, I say. Daniel sets his fork down. He doesn't look surprised, more like a man who's been waiting for a verdict he already knew was coming. Are you going for them or for you? For me. I put my hand on my stomach, still flat, still invisible, just like everything else about me in that family. And for the person I'm carrying, I refuse to pass this pattern down to another generation. Daniel nods. He doesn't try to talk me out of it, doesn't try to plan it for me. He just says, "What do you need?" I need you there. I need Diane there. And I need to walk in knowing exactly what I'm going to say if the moment comes. If the moment comes, or when. I think about that. I won't force it.
But if Brianna performs, if she stands up in front of 60 people and rewrites history one more time, I'm not sitting there smiling along with it. I call Diane that evening. She picks up before the second ring. I'm coming to the party. Good. I'll be at the table near the door. You'll see me. I don't write a speech. I don't rehearse in front of a mirror. I've spent my whole career walking into rooms full of contractors, engineers, and city officials and laying out facts under pressure. I know how to speak clearly in a room that doesn't want to hear it. I just need the facts, and I've had those memorized since I was 12. 5 days before the party, Brianna calls. Not a text this time, a call. Her voice is different, the softness gone, sounding like someone reading off a checklist, sharp and impatient. Mom needs you there, Vanessa. You owe her that. That word lands heavier than she means it to. I'll be there, I say. Nothing else. Silence on the line. Then, wait, you will? I said I'll be there. Oh, okay, good. That's good. She wasn't expecting that. Every script she's ever run ends with me pushing back, her escalating, and Mom stepping in to finish the job. I just skipped 3 acts, and she doesn't know what to do with the empty space. What time should we? I'll handle my own arrival, Brianna. She hangs up. I can feel the confusion through the deadline. Meanwhile, Diane has been doing her own quiet work, not campaigning, not gossiping, just asking a single question to a handful of relatives. Did Carol ever tell you what actually happened? Not one of them had the full story. Uncle Walter, my father's older brother, a retired postmaster with no tolerance for nonsense, told Diane flat out, "Carol said Vanessa was going through a rough patch. That's all we ever heard." A rough patch. That's what my mother called throwing me out of her house at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night. Diane didn't correct anyone. She didn't offer her own version. She just planted the question and let it sit, like a seed in a crack in the sidewalk, small enough to ignore, strong enough to grow. Brianna wanted me at that party. She just didn't want me there with my voice. Saturday, the morning of the party. I stand in front of the bathroom mirror at 7 a.m. My reflection looks the same as it has every other morning this month. Same jawline, same tired eyes, same faint crease between my brows that deepens when I'm working through a problem. But something behind the face is different. Settled. Like a building once the scaffolding comes down. I choose a charcoal blazer over a camel-colored blouse. Simple, clean, the kind of outfit I'd wear to a board presentation. Professional enough to command attention. Understated enough to let the words do the work. Daniel is already dressed, navy suit, no tie. He hands me a glass of water and studies my face. "You sure you want to do this?" I've been sure for 7 days. I just needed 7 days to understand why. We drive the 35 minutes to Belante's in near silence, not tense, the kind of quiet that settles between two people who've already said everything that needed saying and are just watching the road unfold now. The parking lot is half full when we arrive. I recognize the cars: Uncle Walter's green pickup, Aunt Pamela's silver sedan, Cousin Natalie's minivan. 63 people, gathering to celebrate 40 years of a marriage held together by routine and avoidance. Diane is already inside. I spot her through the window, seated near the door, a glass of water in front of her, watching the room the way a nurse watches a waiting room. She catches my eye through the glass. One nod. I take a breath. Daniel opens the restaurant door. My mother sees me first. Her face flickers, relief, then something sharper, like recognition. Her smile comes fast, but her eyes go straight to my posture, my blazer, the way I walk in. She knows something is different. She just can't figure out what. Belante's private dining room is draped in ivory and gold, round tables for 8. A head table at the front with a 40 years banner and a 2-tier cake Brianna almost certainly didn't bake. The room smells like garlic, warm bread, and expensive candles. Brianna is working the room like a campaign manager, hugging aunts, refilling water glasses, pointing the caterer toward the appetizer table with an authority she hasn't earned. She's in a coral dress and heels that click against the hardwood every time she crosses the floor. She looks put together. She looks in charge. Then the slideshow starts, a laptop connected to a projector throwing photos onto the far wall. My parents' wedding, their first apartment, Brianna as a baby, Brianna's first day of school, Brianna's high school graduation, Brianna at the beach with mom and dad, Brianna blowing out birthday candles while our parents beam. I count the photos. 46 total. I appear in 3. One is a wide family shot where I'm standing at the very edge. One is me at age 6, half hidden behind my father's leg. The third cuts off at my shoulder. 46 photos, 3 with me in frame, none where I'm actually the subject. A few of the older relatives notice. Uncle Walter glances at me from across the room, his brow furrowing. Cousin Natalie tilts her head at the screen, then looks at me, then back at the screen. I sip my water. I smile at anyone who catches my eye. I stay calm and present, and I watch everything. My mother steps up to the front of the room. She thanks Brianna for putting the whole beautiful evening together. She doesn't mention my name. I wasn't waiting for the right moment. I was letting the moment build itself. Dessert plates are cleared. Brianna stands. Someone hands her a wireless microphone, the kind they use for karaoke nights at Belante's. She smooths her dress, tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, and smiles. I want to say a few words about the 2 most incredible people I know. The room settles. Phones go face down. 63 people give Brianna exactly what she's always wanted. Undivided attention. Mom and Dad, 40 years, that's not just a number. That's a lifetime of choosing each other every single day. And I want to thank you for always believing in me, even when things were hard. Her voice cracks. Practiced. Perfect. Even when not everyone in this family made it easy. Her eyes flick to me, just for a second, but long enough for the people who are watching, and several are, to follow the glance. Uncle Walter shifts in his seat. Aunt Pamela looks down at her napkin. But family is about forgiveness, Brianna continues. And I'm so glad my sister is here tonight, because it shows that we can move past anything. She raises her glass. The room follows. My mother dabs at her eyes with a cloth napkin. My father lifts his glass without looking at me. To Mom and Dad, to 40 more years, and to family, messy, imperfect, beautiful family. The room clinks glasses. Applause. Brianna sits down to hugs and shoulder squeezes, and my mother leans in and whispers something in her ear. I set my glass down, untouched. She just rewrote the entire narrative in front of 63 witnesses. She made herself the gracious forgiver. She made me the one who needed forgiving. And every person in that room now carries her version of events home with them. She sat down. Everyone smiled. And I stood up. I don't reach for the microphone. I don't need it. The room is small enough, and my voice has always carried when it needed to. I'd like to add to that toast, if that's all right. 63 faces turn. My mother's hand freezes on Brianna's shoulder. My father's glass stops halfway to his lips. Brianna said family is about forgiveness. I agree.
I keep my voice level, project room steady, the same tone I use when a contractor misses a deadline and the room is full of people who don't want to hear it. But forgiveness requires honesty, and there's been very little honesty in this family for a very long time. The clinking stops. The last murmur dies. 3 weeks ago, my mother told me to pack my bags and leave her house that night. No discussion, no questions, because Brianna told her that looking at my face makes her sick. A ripple moves through the room, not sound, movement, a cousin leaning forward, an uncle setting down his fork, Aunt Pamela's hand rising to her mouth. Nobody in this room was told that. Some of you were told I was having marriage problems. That's not true. My marriage is fine. I was removed from my parents' home because it was easier to remove me than to hold my sister accountable for the $4,200 she charged to our parents' credit card on personal items she called business expenses. Brianna's face drains of color. My mother starts to rise. Vanessa, this is not the place. You chose the place, Mom. My voice doesn't rise. It doesn't need to. You chose a party with 60 people over one honest conversation with your own daughter. The room is silent, not the uncomfortable kind, the listening kind. I'm not here to ruin their anniversary. I'm here to tell the truth in a room that's only ever heard one version. I keep both hands at my sides and speak the way I speak in a project review, calm, specific, dated. When I was 12, I was moved to the basement so Brianna could have her own room. When I was 22, my parents left my college graduation early because Brianna had a headache. When I was 28, I called my mother to share a promotion I'd worked 6 years for. She told me Brianna's boss had yelled at her and asked if she could call me back. She never did. I pause and let the room absorb it.
Every time Brianna struggled, I was blamed. Every time I succeeded, it got minimized. And every time I tried to talk about it, I was told I was too sensitive. Then Diane stands. She doesn't rush it. She rises the way she does everything, measured, deliberate, her nurse's calm filling the space. She's telling the truth. Her voice is steady. I watched the same thing happen to me in this family 30 years ago. Our mother did it to Carol and me, and now Carol has done it to Vanessa and Brianna. The room turns to my mother. Her face is white. Her mouth opens, then closes. Her hand grips the edge of the table. My father stares down at his plate, his jaw tight. Uncle Walter speaks from the second table, his voice low and direct, a retired postmaster who spent 40 years dealing in fax and zip codes. Is that true, Carol? You kicked her out? My mother doesn't answer. She looks at Brianna. Brianna looks at the floor. 63 people. One question. No answer. I didn't come here for revenge, I say. I came here because 60 people in this room deserve to know exactly who they were toasting. Brianna stands. Her chair scrapes the floor, the same sound it made 3 weeks earlier at that dining table when she pushed back and ran to Mom's bedroom. But this time, there's nowhere to run. The room is full. The door is 30 feet away, and every face she turns to is waiting, not rescuing. You're lying. Her voice shakes. Not the practiced tremble, the real kind. The kind that comes when the ground you've been standing on turns out to belong to someone else. You're always lying about me. Nobody nods. Nobody rushes in. Nobody says, let's all calm down. The room holds still. My mother tries. This is a family matter. We don't need to. Uncle Walter cuts her off, his voice carrying the way only a man who spent decades behind a service counter can manage. Then why are 60 people here, Carol? Brianna's eyes sweep the room one more time. She's looking for the lifeline, the sympathetic face, the outstretched hand, the person who will say, "It's okay, honey," and fold her back into safety. She doesn't find it. She picks up her clutch from the table and walks toward the door, her heels clicking on the hardwood, slower now, unsteady. She doesn't look back. My mother follows. The door swings shut behind them. I stay standing for another 3 seconds. Then I sit down. Daniel puts his hand on my knee under the table, not a squeeze, just presence. My father is still in his chair. He hasn't moved. He hasn't followed my mother out. For 34 years, Frank Marsh's instinct in every family crisis was to follow Carol's lead, close the door, and wait for the noise to stop. He stayed. And for the first time in 34 years, that meant something. Diane finds them in the parking lot. I know because she tells me later, on the phone that night, after Daniel and I have driven home in the kind of silence that feels like decompressing after a deep dive. My mother was standing next to the catering van, gripping Brianna's arm. Not gently, the way you grab someone you're terrified of losing control over. "Look what you did," my mother was saying. "Look what your drama caused. I told you to invite her and keep it simple. I told you to manage it." Brianna pulled her arm free. Me? She's the one who stood up and… You told me she makes you sick. You gave her the ammunition. Diane said she watched this for 10 seconds before stepping forward. She'd spent 30 years avoiding this exact conversation. Tonight she wasn't leaving without having it. Carol, her voice cut through both of theirs. You're doing it again. My mother spun around. Stay out of this, Diane. I stayed out of it for 30 years. That was my mistake. Diane looked at Brianna and spoke directly to her, not past her. Your mother was the golden child in our family. I was the invisible one. Our mother chose Carol every single time. And now Carol has done to Vanessa exactly what was done to me. Brianna stood very still. She doesn't protect you because she loves you more, Diane said. She protects you because she needs you to need her. The moment you stop needing her, she has nothing. My mother didn't speak. Diane told me her hands were trembling, not from anger, from recognition, the kind that hits when someone holds a mirror up to something you've spent a lifetime avoiding. Brianna looked at her mother, then walked to her car alone. Back inside, the room had thinned out. Some guests left quietly during the commotion. Others lingered, unsure whether to stay or go. The cake sat untouched. The slideshow had been shut off. Someone pulled the plug, maybe out of mercy. I'm at a table near the window, finishing a glass of water, when my father sits down across from me. No preamble, no small talk about the weather. He just pulls out the chair and drops into it like a man who's been standing too long. We sit in silence for a full minute. I let him have it. He needs the runway. I knew, he says. His voice is low, not a whisper, just the volume of a man who isn't used to saying things that matter. I always knew it wasn't fair. Then why, Dad? He rubs the bridge of his nose with his thumb and forefinger, a gesture so familiar it almost breaks my composure. He did the same thing the night I moved to the basement, the night my graduation got cut short. Every night he chose silence over confrontation. Because fighting your mother was harder than watching you hurt, and I chose the easier path every single time. His eyes are wet, not streaming, just full, the kind of tears a man from a generation that told him not to cry allows himself only once the scaffolding finally comes down. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he says. I'm telling you I failed, and I'm telling you now because I should have told you when you were 12. I look at him for a long time, my father, the man who almost knocked. I hear you, Dad, but hearing it doesn't undo it. He nods. He doesn't argue. And that, just that, is a start. I love you, Dad, but I can't rebuild on a foundation you chose to crack. The week after the party, my phone buzzes more than it has in years. But for the first time, the calls aren't asking me to perform. They're asking me to talk. Cousin Natalie texts first. I saw the slideshow. 3 photos, Vanessa. 3. I'm so sorry I never said anything. Uncle Walter calls Monday. I've known your mother a long time. I always thought something was off. I should have pushed harder. 2 of my father's old fishing buddies, men who were at that party, reach out to Daniel. They don't say much, just, your wife's got guts. We respect that. And then Aunt Pamela calls, the same Pamela who told me to be the bigger person. Her voice is different now, smaller. I asked your mom what happened that night. She didn't deny it, Vanessa. She just stopped talking. I'm sorry I told you to let it go. I didn't know. 4 people in 1 week. 4 people who saw the same family I grew up in and chose not to look too closely. Now they're looking. It doesn't fix anything, but it matters. Brianna doesn't call. My mother doesn't call. Then 9 days after the party, an email arrives from Brianna. 2 lines. I don't know who I am without this family protecting me. I hate you for making me see that. I read it 3 times. I don't reply, but I recognize something in those 2 sentences I've never heard from Brianna before. The truth, ugly, raw, unperformed. She's not playing a role. She's standing in the wreckage of the only strategy she's ever known, and for the first time, she has no script. It isn't an apology, but it's the most honest thing my sister has ever said to me. I write the email on a Sunday morning. Daniel is mowing the lawn. The house smells like the lavender candle I lit on the kitchen windowsill. My laptop is open. My hands are steady. I address it to both my parents. Not a text, not a phone call, an email, because I want a record, and because some things need to be said in full sentences, not fragments squeezed between interruptions. Mom, Dad, I love you. And because I love you, I need to be honest about what I need going forward. I lay out 3 conditions, not ultimatums, conditions. First, I will not be in the same room as Brianna until she acknowledges directly to me what she said and what it caused. Not, let's move on. Not, I'm sorry you felt that way. A real acknowledgement. Second, neither of them discusses me with extended family unless I'm present in the conversation. No more rewriting. No more narrating my life in my absence. Third, any visit, any call, any interaction respects these boundaries. If they're crossed, I'll leave. No argument, no second warning. This isn't punishment, I write. This is protection. For me, for Daniel, and for the child I'm carrying. I let that sentence sit on the screen for a long time before I hit send. The pregnancy, 12 weeks along now. They're finding out through an email about boundaries, which isn't how I imagined it. But the truth is, this is the only version of that announcement that's honest. I'm not sharing this news to manipulate or guilt anyone. I'm sharing it because the stakes are real, and they need to understand exactly what's at risk if nothing changes. I press send, close the laptop, and walk outside. Daniel kills the mower when he sees me. Sent? He asks. Sent. 3 months later, the nursery is pale green, a color Daniel picked after reading an article about calming environments for newborns. The crib is assembled. The mobile hangs from the ceiling, little wooden birds turning slowly in the draft from the window. My belly is showing now, 16 weeks along. The morning sickness has faded into something gentler, a low hum of awareness that everything is shifting, inside and out. Diane comes by on Saturdays. She brings casseroles and unsolicited advice about infant sleep schedules, and I love every second of it. She sits at our kitchen table and tells stories about her early years as a nurse, the babies she delivered, the families she watched form and reform, the ones that made it and the ones that didn't. She's the family I should have had access to all along. My mother kept that distance for years. Now the distance is mine to close, and I'm closing it. My father calls on Wednesdays, not long calls, 5 minutes, maybe 10. He asks about the baby. He asks about Daniel. He asks how I'm feeling. He doesn't mention my mother, and I don't ask. We're building something small and careful, like a man repairing a joint one fitting at a time. My mother sent a card, pale yellow envelope, no return address, but I'd know her handwriting anywhere. Inside, a generic congratulations card from the grocery store. Below the printed message, in her careful teacher's script, I'm trying. 2 words, not enough, not nearly enough, but more than I expected. Brianna, nothing. Silence. And I've learned enough about silence to know there are different kinds. Some silence is punishment. Some is processing. I choose to believe hers is the second kind. I don't need them to be perfect. I need them to be honest. And honest is a slow road. I'm standing in the nursery. The paint is dry. The crib is ready. The window is cracked open, and a May breeze pushes through the screen, turning those little wooden birds in slow circles above the mattress. Daniel comes up behind me, his hand resting on my shoulder, warm and solid, the weight of someone who's been standing next to me, not in front of me, through all of it. This room has no history, I say. No patterns, no rules, just space. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. I look toward the closet. Inside, folded on the top shelf, is the gray duffel bag, the one I packed in 4 minutes on a Thursday night, the one that weighed 11 pounds. I washed it, folded it, put it away. I didn't throw it out. It's part of the record, but I don't need it anymore. There was a girl who moved to the basement at 12 and didn't complain. A woman who graduated with honors and didn't get seen. A daughter who called home with good news and got silence in return. She kept showing up. She kept earning. She kept believing that if she just did enough, they would finally look at her. She was enough all along. She just needed 7 days of silence to finally hear it. I picked up one bag and left without a word. But the woman who walked out that door isn't the woman standing in this room. This room is for someone new, someone who will never have to earn a place in her own family, someone who will be seen, not because she performs, but simply because she exists. Endurance is not a family value, transparency is, and this is where the new pattern starts. That's my story, and I want to know, what would you have done? If you were standing at that anniversary party with 60 people watching, would you have spoken up, or would you have let it go? Drop your answer in the comments. Option A if you'd speak up, option B if you'd walk away quietly. Neither answer is wrong. Both take courage. And if this story reminded you of someone in your life, share it with them. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let someone know they're not invisible. There are more stories like this one in the description below. I'll see you there.